Single mother returns milk, discover the incredible act that transformed their lives forever. Jessica stepped hesitantly onto her porch, the autumn sun casting long shadows over Maplewood's cracked pavement. A half-empty carton of milk lay forgotten at her feet, its expiration date glaring up at her like a cruel reminder of her recent layoff from the grocery store. She hadn't planned to become a full-time mother and part-time homeless, but here she was $200 short on rent, staring down the remnants of a shattered dream. In a small town bound by whispers of nostalgia and the unyielding weight of survival, her routine clung to her like an old sweater, faded and worn, yet somehow comforting. As she turned to return the milk, her heart raced with uncertainty. What if Mrs. Jenkins was busy with her garden? Did she really want to expose herself to the elderly woman's warm smile when she was dreading her own reflection? A spark of shame ignited in her chest. It was silly to feel this way over a simple act, yet the world felt heavier today. After all, skimming through her bank account, all she saw were echoes of bills and desperation. What if they had to move? What if her children, those precious souls, felt the sting of her failure? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jessica knocked on Mrs. Jenkins' door, a blend of anticipation and dread twisted in her stomach. The old woman greeted her with open arms and genuine warmth, yet Jessica still felt the weight of her worries creeping back in. The plush comfort of shared laughter and cups of coffee felt at odds with her frayed nerves. As days turned into weeks of honest conversations, a flicker of old dreams danced within her. Could she really become a nurse? The thought was exhilarating, yet terrifying, a ghost from her past returning to haunt her amid the obligations of motherhood. But as she began to confide in Mrs. Jenkins, the wise old woman unveiled her own shadow of burdens. The diner, once the heart of the community, now faced an uncertain future against the looming threat from a developer eager for profit. Jessica's heart twisted with empathy, the struggle of the diner resonating with her own plight. Could it be that amid her failures, she could still help someone, do something meaningful? Yet each day brought her closer to the duplicity of hope and despair. The whispers of loss echoed in the town, and with them, Jessica felt a tinge of defiance rise within. This connection, the shared love for the diner and the momentary light it brought, nudged her conscience. But the moment she dared to rally her neighbors, she felt their stares of doubt like blades. Could she really bear the weight of their skepticism while grappling with her own fears? The stakes rose, and with them, the burning urgency to take a stand. In the quiet of her room, she fought against the nagging sense of inadequacy. Her children didn't just see her as the frazzled mother barely keeping it together. They saw a hero in their mom, one who could stand against injustice, however daunting it seemed. But what if it all came crashing down? The pressure mounted as Mrs. Jenkins' kind eyes held her accountable. Would she muster the courage to confront the developer? Her heart raced, the crossroads loomed dangerously close as discomfort settled deep in her bones. As she readied for the community meeting, Jessica faced the sinking realization. It was in those moments, on the brink of potential heartbreak, that true courage beckoned. Would she leap into the unknown, or allow her fears to anchor her down? The sun dipped low, casting a warm golden hue over Maplewood, yet Jessica felt chilled by the impending uncertainty. The meeting loomed ahead, an itch beneath her skin as her heart raced at the thought of confronting not just the developer, but the very whispers of self-doubt that had followed her for far too long. As she took a deep breath, she caught her reflection in the hallway mirror, a tired visage blending with hope-fueled determination. She could no longer ignore the internal plea to fight for something larger than herself. With every passing second, the call to action resonated more profoundly. She wasn't just doing this for the diner, she was igniting a spark within herself that had almost extinguished over the years of wear and tear. Preparing her notes felt like wielding a weapon meant to battle her own insecurities. She scribbled points emphasizing the diner's role in the community, from family gatherings over pancakes to the late-night chats over coffee. It felt trivial and monumental at once. Each word reaffirmed her desire to evolve from passive despair into proactive strength. Yet beneath the surface lay a tempest of terror. What if her words tumbled out jumbled? What if the judgment held her hostage? Visualizing the room filled with familiar faces, she could almost hear their critiques resonating in her mind. Those doubts clutched her tightly, but she paced in her kitchen, embracing the familiar sounds of her children laughing in the living room. They believed in her, how could she not believe in herself? As the time approached, she donned her best sweater, a small touch of care amid the chaos. Jessica had learned through experience that little details mattered, and today, she needed to present herself strong. Upon entering the community hall, the weight of her resolve settled heavily in her chest. The chairs filled with neighbors casting sideways glances and whispering amongst themselves, she felt like an outsider in her own life, teetering between doubt and an exhilarating urge to break free. The developer, a slick man with a polished demeanor, lounged casually, flipping through his notes like a game rather than a pivotal moment for Maplewood. When the meeting began, she faltered as her name was called. Her instincts wailed for retreat. The familiar suffocating doubt tightened its grip around her throat. But as she walked toward the front, she stumbled upon an unexpected realization: she wasn't alone. Each face in the room bore the marks of struggle, each person woven into the fabric of the community, just as she was. "Good evening," she began, her voice unwavering despite the tumult inside. "We're here to discuss more than just a building, we are here to protect our home." The words poured forth, fueled by years of unarticulated pain and the desperation to reclaim what they stood for. She spoke of shared memories, resilience, and the need to preserve a place that encapsulated their lives. As she carried on, the tension slightly faded, giving way to an audience listening, not with cynicism but curiosity. Their eyes met hers, and for the first time in what felt like eternity, she was not just Jessica, the overwhelmed mother. She was a voice echoing their collective struggle. With her pulse racing, although comforted by her newfound role, she hesitated, knowing she was veering toward the unknown and vulnerable territory of communal debate. Would they rally together, or would doubts snuff out this flickering hope? "Let us stand together," she urged, feeling the fire of ambition stir within her. "Let us not just save this diner, let us unveil the strength we possess." The weight of her eyes loomed, and with that glimmer of courage, she wondered if the community meeting could transform not only the fate of their diner but also, perhaps, herself. As she concluded, the room remained silent but alive, a charged atmosphere waiting for the next move. Would they embrace the call to action, or would she be left standing alone in this meeting of minds and hearts? The murmur of uncertainty rippled through her, but something deeper hung in the balance, the clarity that her life, albeit rutted, could change course if she continued to step forward. Jessica felt the ground shift beneath her, and for the first time, her doubts melted into possibilities. Tension swelled in the air as someone from the back stood up, and she braced herself for what could unfold next. Would their apprehensions unite them or lead them further apart? The unexpected figure rising from the back caught Jessica off guard. The dim hall seemed to close in on her as her heart drummed louder. A tall man with tousled hair and a weary face stepped into the light. "Jessica," he said, his voice carrying a tremor of uncertain hope. "I remember the day my daughter had her first birthday party at the diner. It wasn't just about the cake, it was the laughter that brought us together. We need that place." She felt a sudden jolt of recognition. He had been a regular patron, always scribbling on napkins as he sipped coffee. His words held weight, echoing her own arguments, and they stirred a warmth within her. Perhaps this meeting wasn't her battle alone, after all. It was the space for others to voice their own stories, their own struggles. As the tension in the room shifted, more hands began to rise, each voice a compelling testament to the diner's importance. They spoke candidly about family dinners, memories forged over cups of coffee, and the solace they found within its walls. Jessica's heart swelled with gratitude and purpose. The community was responding. But with each new story shared, the inner conflict stirred within her. As the dialogue blossomed, the developer's face shifted from nonchalance to annoyance, brow furrowing with displeasure. His presence felt like a dark cloud looming overhead, silently threatening to rain on their newfound solidarity. Jessica's pulse quickened. She faced a crucial choice. Should she press on with her argument or allow the developer to steer the narrative back to cold commerce? As voices merged and rose strong, Jessica realized she needed to take the reins. "Everyone," she called, her voice ringing out amid the rising din. "We're not here just to share stories, we're here to assert our right to this space. We can't let him dictate our needs or ignore our worth." The room fell silent as all eyes turned toward her. Jessica could feel the weight of the moment, senses heightened. Would her words ignite further passion or crumble under pressure? "Let me remind you," she continued, now drawing strength from the connection she had forged. "This isn't just about a diner. We are talking about our lives and memories, our stories being reduced to profit margins. We have to remind him that we are a community." With every sentence, she crafted a narrative not of resistance only, but of unwavering pride, of shared humanity and dreams for a space where her children could grow in safety, under bright lights and warm food. She could feel the energy shift, not just in the audience, but within herself, truth blossoming into resolve. When she paused, a moment hung taut in the air. Everyone seemed to sense the turning tide, teetering on the brink of commitment. The developer shifted uncomfortably, the force of the collective spirit now threatening to overtake his sales pitch. But as the room hummed with anticipation, a sharp voice cut through. "You think a few speeches will stop progress? These people will forget you in a heartbeat." It was the developer, finally speaking up, eyes glinting with challenge. Jessica's stomach twisted, her resolve tested anew. What came next could either fortify or fracture everything she had built up to this point. Could she muster the courage to articulate her truth even more powerfully in the face of such disparagement? "Change is not forgetfulness," she shot back, her voice steadier than before. "It's the refusal to concede to those who don't understand our home." The tension swelled between them, an electric current of confrontation. She felt emboldened, yet the stakes were palpably high. The room was poised on a precipice. Would she rise to the challenge, wielding her newfound voice to confront the developer more fiercely, or would she falter under the weight of the skepticism directed her way? The outcome loomed like a storm overhead, dark and decisive. The moment of truth hovered, and as her heart raced with anticipation, Jessica faced the reality that a choice must be made, a choice not only for the diner but for her own emerging identity. Would she step fully into the role she had fought to embrace, or would she let this opportunity slip through her fingers? Jessica's thoughts raced as she stood at the crossroads of determination and doubt. She could feel her pulse thrumming in her ears, drowning out the noise of the room around her. In that moment, it was clear, this was not merely a defense of the diner, it was a declaration of her own identity. She shaped her message into a rallying cry, refusing to shrink back in the face of the developer's arrogance. With a deep breath, she squared her shoulders and looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each person who had come to support her. "We are not here to be forgotten," she said, her voice unwavering. "We deserve to be heard. Because this isn't just about one building. It's about the heart of our community, the laughter, the love, and the stories that have made us who we are." As she spoke, Jessica felt an unfamiliar confidence surge within her. She had transformed from a timid spectator into a powerful advocate. Every memory shared, every laugh recounted, tied her further to those around her, creating a tapestry of connection woven with their shared experiences. She was not merely fighting for the diner, she was fighting for the essence of what it meant to be part of a community. The developer's smirk faltered slightly, his eyes narrowing in response to the charged atmosphere. Jessica noted the subtle shift. Perhaps he hadn't anticipated the tenacity of those he dismissed so easily. She could sense the tide turning, and she leaned into that energy. "You think we'll forget our memories? You think we're wrong to stand for what we love?" She raised her voice, intensity radiating from her very core. "We won tea. We refuse to be passive in the face of your commodification." With each word, her resolve crystallized further. It was more than just a fight for the diner, it was a decision to not let outside forces dictate her family's narrative. Jessica recalled the countless nights she spent in the diner with her children, the way her daughter squealed with glee at the sight of her favorite pancakes, and how her son took pride in sharing his quirky drawings with the waitress, who always gave him a special star sticker in return. "Those moments matter," she asserted, feeling the necessity of her urgency more implicit than ever. And if we lose this, we lose a piece of ourselves. The murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, emboldening her further. She could see faces nodding, eyes gleaming with recognition, unity igniting a sense of camaraderie. Emotions hung potent in the air, and Jessica was reminded how collectively they created a mosaic of experience that could not be so easily erased. As she ventured deeper into her conviction, she realized she was handling this not just for her community but for herself. She was a single mother navigating the complexities of life, working long hours and juggling responsibilities, but here, in this moment, she was powerful. She knew now that her voice could carry beyond these walls. Jessica turned back to the developer, steeling herself. "You're right, in one sense progress is coming. But do you really believe that turning us out for profit is progress? This diner is part of a legacy, and we will fight to keep it." The developer, momentarily caught off guard, took a breath as if trying to regain the upper hand. "What will it take for you to understand?" His tone dripped with condescension, but she felt embers of defiance spark even brighter. It wouldn't just take words to convince him. Jessica understood this battle would demand strategy and foresight. What kind of supporting documents could she gather? How could she organize her thoughts to reflect both her passion and facts that showed the diner's financial significance to the community? As they stood there, the tension between her and the developer now palpable, Jessica knew the time had come to face this struggle not just with emotional appeals, but with a meticulous plan that embraced her increasingly sharpened awareness of her worth. She held on tightly to that realization. Within her lay the strength to not only reclaim the diner but to redefine her path. What was her next strategic move? Suddenly, a swirl of implications both thrilled and frightened her. This battle was evolving, and Jessica wasn't just fighting for a place, she was redefining herself in the process. She had moved from being a passive observer to an active participant, and this journey had only just begun. But with the developer's gaze still fixed on her, she knew one undeniable truth: she would need every ounce of grit and ingenuity to fortify her stand. The moment had arrived, she was about to own her narrative fully. Standing at the precipice of this pivotal moment, she wondered, would she find the allies she needed to bolster her strategy, or would she face the devastating possibility of confronting this intricate web alone? Jessica stepped back from the heated exchange, her mind racing through a flurry of thoughts. Ownership of her voice had sparked a fire within her she hadn't known existed. Yet despite the swell of confidence, uncertainty loomed. It was one thing to speak passionately, it was another to draft a battle plan that could withstand the calculated aggression of the developer. She needed a strategy that shrouded the diner's significance in both emotional appeal and hard facts, and that meant meticulously gathering information. The next few days would be crucial for her development, not only as a community advocate but as a more competent version of herself. As she sat at the kitchen table that evening, her laptop illuminating the dim room, she felt the weight of her goals shift from abstract desires to concrete actions. Researching the diner's financial records became her first task, one that required diligence and an eye for detail. It wasn't merely about profits, it was about demonstrating the diner's long-standing impact on the local economy. Framing it as a business case might resonate more with the council and locals alike. As she delved deeper into the intricacies of local business laws and regulations, Jessica stumbled across statistics illustrating the diner's economic contributions over the years. It was more than breakfasts and coffee, it was jobs, community engagement, and support for local suppliers. Here lay the data that could bolster her arguments. With each discovery, her conviction hardened, and where late-night diners had once been mere memories, they transformed into a powerful narrative of resilience and growth. But as her confidence burgeoned, so did a troubling thought: was her determination rooted in sheer defiance, or was it an unyielding truth she'd come to believe in? There was no singular answer, just an awakening that prompted her to question her motivations. Was she championing the diner or seeking validation through this fight? The realization felt like a double-edged sword. Jessica took a pause, the weight of her contemplation pressing down. It would be easy to chase validation, one more instance of proving her worth to the world, but she needed to anchor her motivations in authenticity. This wasn't just about the diner, it was about modeling resilience for her children, teaching them the importance of standing firm in their beliefs. The next day, she reached out to other local business owners. Each conversation reaffirmed the importance of collaboration. They carried similar grievances and a shared history, one that echoed the diner's charm. Networking brought her ideas into focus. Not only should her presentation invoke statistics but also share concrete personal stories like those she had shared earlier. As plans solidified, her confidence evolved from passive assertiveness into proactive leadership. It was no longer sufficient just to be a voice against encroaching corporate interests. She was now in the position to lead the charge. The developer needed to be shown that her voice could reflect the will of many. She would gather testimonies, compose a narrative that painted the diner as a foundational pillar in their lives. Each step toward her objective felt electric, but then stark doubts accompanied her efforts. Was she capable of truly leading this initiative? What if the final confrontation with the developer exposed her weaknesses? What if her advocacy effort faltered? Yet these self-doubts were laced with an understanding of her own growth. Each sleepless night spent formulating plans, coupled with phone calls exchanged, was sharpening her into the person she intended to be, a fierce advocate who could stand confidently in front of the council and present a unified front. As she prepared for the weeks ahead, a phrase echoed, underscoring her conviction: the time had come to face the developer. No longer just words, it became a guideline for her transformation. The kernel of self-reliance had sprouted steadily in her heart, intertwined with accountability to herself and her children. Jessica stood in front of her bathroom mirror that night, breathing deeply. Her reflection revealed a woman who had straddled the line between fear and determination, and she was now ready to confront that reality head-on. But just then her phone buzzed, a text lighting the screen that challenged everything she believed. Could it really be, the developer was coming to meet with her personally? The stakes were rising, and she realized this moment would be pivotal not just for her cause, but for her own evolution. How could she prepare for a confrontation that would define her fight? The glow from her phone faded, leaving Jessica in darkness laced with a rush of adrenaline. She felt a mixture of excitement and dread flutter in her stomach. The developer was not just some faceless antagonist in a series of meetings. He was coming to her, personally. This uninvited closeness felt like both a gift and a guillotine. Could this be an opportunity to sway him, or would it unravel the careful threads she had been weaving? Days passed in a whirl of preparation. Jessica spent long hours crafting points for discussion while remaining vigilant against her fearful inner voice. Each morning greeted her with fresh determination, the drive to marshal not only facts but also her personal narrative. The diner had been more than a community spot. It was where she had nurtured hope, friendship, and the simple joys of life. How could she convey that to him? How could she make the developer see beyond his corporate checklist to the heart of what the diner truly symbolized? With every brush of her finger against the keyboard, she transformed statistics into stories. She recalled the regulars, an elderly man who had breakfast each day with a newspaper by his side, a group of teenagers who frequented the diner each Friday, saving their allowances to split one serving of fries. These moments mattered. They represented the communal heartbeat that thrived despite the encroaching shadows of urban expansion. Each story she drafted filled her veins with purpose. Yet, just as her resolve strengthened, anxiety crept in. What if the developer's charm was a facade, masking an unwavering commitment to his corporate agenda? Each question burrowed deeper into her mind until she found herself awake in the middle of the night, a silhouette of worry against the dark ceiling. It was hard to focus only on the diner when she was deeply aware of the ramifications her actions might have, not just on her children but on a whole generation of small business owners who might falter beneath the weight of corporate giants. A pivotal moment arrived during a late-night call with Mia, her closest friend. "You need to own your story, Jess. You may not know it, but you're stepping into a role you were made for. This isn't just about the diner, it's about showing your kids that you can stand up against anyone, no matter how powerful they think they are." The encouragement struck a chord. It was time to silence the echoes of doubt that haunted her nights. She had grown exponentially over these weeks. Each task she undertook had chipped away at her earlier insecurities, revealing hidden strengths she hadn't recognized before. The confidence she gained wasn't merely constructed by rehearsed points, it was fortified through resilience, forged in vulnerability, and illuminated by the passion she felt for her community. As the day of the meeting approached, Jessica's plans solidified. She arranged visuals to enhance her narrative and rehearsed the personal anecdotes until they felt fluid and instinctive. Standing before her mirror each evening, she practiced not just her words, but the posture of conviction and assurance. Fear nodded within her, but beneath that raw energy was a glimmer of newfound strength. Finally, on the morning of their meeting, she donned a simple but sharp outfit, something that encapsulated who she was: honest, nurturing, and fierce. She left the house, a firm resolve guiding her steps, the quiet rustling of leaves echoing her internal transformation. As she navigated the familiar streets leading to the diner, memories cascaded through her mind: laughter, tears, victories, and losses, a tapestry woven with pride. Jessica could feel the weight of it all resting on her shoulders. What was at stake wasn't merely a diner, it was a symbol, a lesson in her children's quest for courage. But when she arrived, the developer was not waiting alone, his attorney had accompanied him. The air shifted instantly, a chill spiraling through Jessica. Tension coated the atmosphere as a new dynamic emerged, and she realized she would be facing more than just a corporate representative. She was standing against a well-prepared machine built for negotiation. This unexpected challenge sent ripples of panic through her, but in that moment, Jessica's conviction ignited once more. She took a breath, reminded of the stories waiting to be told, the truth waiting to be uncovered. Would she be able to maintain the resolve that had burgeoned within her over weeks of preparation? As she stepped inside, the looming question remained: could she hold her ground against a system designed to silence her voice? The stakes had risen dramatically, and now, more than ever, her evolution hinged on the outcome. Through the doorway, she was not only fighting for the diner but for a future she believed in. The moment Jessica crossed the threshold, a wave of uncertainty crashed over her. The developer's polished presence, flanked by the legal advisor, felt like an impenetrable wall. Their confident body language radiated conviction, a stark contrast to the vulnerability simmering just beneath her own composure. Her heart raced, but she couldn't afford to show it. This wasn't merely a business meeting, it was a battleground for everything she held dear. "Thank you for meeting with us, Jessica," the developer began, his voice smooth as silk, masking the steel beneath. "I believe we can work together to create something truly magnificent here." His intent was clear: he aimed to charm her into submission, to make her believe she was part of his vision rather than a protector of her own. Jessica squared her shoulders. The stories she had carefully crafted flooded her mind, battling against the rising tide of panic. She reminded herself of Mia's words: this was about owning her narrative. Stepping forward, she engaged: "Before we discuss your plans, I want to highlight what this diner means to the people who love it." She felt the weight of their gaze, skeptical yet curious. Summoning her courage, she shared her first story: the elderly man who transformed his solitary breakfasts into a ritual of companionship with a newspaper, and the teenagers whose laughter filled the corners like sunlight. As she spoke, the initial intimidation began to subside, replaced with the warmth of familiarity. However, the attorney wasn't so easily swayed. "Emotional anecdotes are lovely, Jessica, but let us focus on numbers. The community isn't a factor in our investment assessments," he interjected with calculated precision, attempting to redirect the conversation toward cost-benefit analyses. For a moment, dread washed over her. Would they dismiss her stories as irrelevant? Burrowing their intentions beneath a sea of charts and spreadsheets? Panic clutched at her throat, and doubt crept back in, threatening to unravel her carefully woven resolve. But just as doubt began to bubble over, a thought crystallized: those numbers represented people. And those people are why this diner is more than just a business. "It's a safe haven in a city that feels ever more isolating," she stated, her tone steady. "Your profit margins may tell a story, but it's one without a heart." Their expressions did not shift, but Jessica sensed a new tension settling in the room. The stakes had escalated. She was no longer just pitching ideals, she was challenging their worldview. Panic had given way to determination. Yet the developer pressed on: "We see potential here that could redefine the diner, evolve the concept into something significantly more profitable." His effortless charm did not hide the underlying threat: their vision could swallow hers whole. In that moment, Jessica's conviction crystallized into clarity. This wasn't just about her fight, it was about pushing back against the encroachment of corporate culture in her life and her community. And at what cost? She asked, finding strength in her own voice. Will you erase the very essence of what made it special? The heart, the stories, the connections? Silence fell, and the realization that her words carried weight filled her with power. She had transformed from a mere participant in a negotiation into a formidable voice of resistance. The tension in the room shimmered around her like electricity, and with it came the acknowledgement that she was more than ready to battle. Do you believe the memories and bonds created here are less valuable than a spreadsheet of potential earnings? A challenge hung in the air, and she saw a flicker of uncertainty dance behind the developer's polished facade. The ground had shifted beneath them. She was no longer just defending her diner, she was defending a cultural legacy that spoke of resilience, belonging, and hope. But the real test was only just beginning. The attorney's fingers drummed impatiently on the table. He clearly anticipated her emotional appeal, but now it seemed he was recalibrating his approach. Would they cement their corporate stance with aggression, or would they consider the truth she had laid bare? Jessica held her breath, sensing the fragile balance of power hanging between them. The outcome of this meeting, the very future of the diner, was precarious, the stakes painfully high. Could she navigate through their defenses and solidify her stance, or was she about to face an onslaught of counterarguments that could rip apart everything she held dear? The moment had come to confront them with unwavering honesty. She must brace herself for what lay ahead. As she prepared to forge ahead, the looming question stung in her mind. How far was she willing to go to protect not just the diner, but her own newfound self? Jessica's heartbeat echoed in her ears, an incessant drumbeat matching the rising tension in the room. She was fully aware that the precious narratives she had shared were not merely embellishments, they stood as the undercurrents of purpose in her fight. Yet, she sensed their dismissal lingering in the air, a sharp contrast to the vulnerability she sought to transform into strength. The attorney leaned in, his eyes narrowing slightly. You seem passionate, Jessica, which is commendable. But how do you plan to sustain this diner with nostalgia alone? We're here to talk about sustainable growth. His tone suggested he was prepared to engage in a battle of wits rather than heart. Jessica's mind raced, exploring avenues of potential response. She could rant, retreat, or reflect. But retreat was not an option. She had to strategize. Sustainability is more than just financial growth, it's about community resilience and supporting what makes this diner a landmark, she replied, ensuring her voice carried firmness. For the first time, she caught the developer's gaze soften briefly. You have to realize, Jessica, the community benefits will be factored into the decision-making model, but they can't outweigh the bottom line. Numbers are what lead to survival in this market. People come and go, but profits are eternal. His words, chilly and calculated, cut through her conviction. It wasn't merely the fact that he didn't comprehend the value of emotional connections, he actively chose to disregard them. She grew acutely aware of her emotional state, frustration threatening to spiral into despair. The diner wasn't just a business, it was her lifeline, an extension of her identity and aspirations. Isn't it ironic? Jessica mused, gaining confidence as she felt her frustrations morphing into resolve. You talk about numbers like they have no life. But what if I told you those numbers tell stories? Each sale is another memory for someone, a piece of continuity in a world of changes they can't control. Her words invited silence, a notable shift that wrapped around her like a protective veil. She noticed the attorney hesitating, processing the incongruity of her argument. Perhaps she was uncovering a crack in their armor. Jessica leaned forward, embracing the burgeoning momentum. These aren't just transactions. It's the laughter of children, the love stories shared over milkshakes, and the regulars who transform mundane days into memorable experiences. Are you really prepared to abandon that for higher margins? With each passing moment, her confidence swelled. The chains of self-doubt that had tethered her behavior were breaking, revealing an emerging warrior within. She had entered this meeting as an anxious business owner, but with each statement, she felt her identity redefining. Who she was at the diner was intricately woven into who she was everywhere else. The developer shifted in his seat, casting a quick look to his attorney, who seemed to be recalculating his strategy. Jessica seized this opening. This moment of uncertainty among her opponents was a rare and precious opportunity. It was time to charge. Imagine a plan that doesn't only aim for profits but creates a model that inspires other establishments. Imagine potential partnerships with local artisans that build a stronger economy while preserving this diner's legacy. You can push for transformation without losing its essence, creating something uniquely wonderful. The developer ran a hand through his hair, contemplating. She could sense the walls starting to melt. Her fervent belief was challenging their corporate preconceptions. This wasn't just a battle for her diner, it was a fight to articulate her truth, her place in the world. However, as she pressed on, the reality remained daunting. Her greatest fears loomed over the horizon. What if they rejected her vision, failing not just her dream but the spirit of everyone tied to the diner? In an almost audible gasp, Jessica recognized the inevitability of the choices she would make in the coming minutes. It wasn't only about survival. It was a pivotal moment in her journey of self-discovery and empowerment. The attorney finally spoke again, this time with a hint of genuine curiosity. And what does this new vision look like in practical terms? Her breath caught, an electrifying mixture of existential possibility and trepidation flooded her senses. This was her moment to lead them into her world, to shape their understanding of success. Jessica felt the ground beneath her feet shifting for the thousandth time today, but rather than panic, she felt clarity emerging from the chaos. Isn't it time, she asked softly, that we redefine what success means, not just for us but for everyone who cherishes this diner? As she prepared to outline her vision, she realized she wasn't just fighting for the diner anymore. She was on the precipice of true personal transformation. But would she have the courage to forge ahead, or would this chance slip through her fingers like so many before? The stakes had never been higher, and the room felt charged with unspoken possibilities. Jessica inhaled deeply, the weight of the moment pressing against her chest. The room was rich with anticipation, and as the silence stretched, every face seemed eager for her to deliver something extraordinary. Even the developer, who had once appeared so dismissive. This was her moment to articulate a vision that transcended mere numbers. It was time to weave an intricate narrative around her diner that combined her professional aspirations with her deeply held values. First, she began, her voice steady though her heart raced beneath her blazer. Let us look beyond the ledger. She could feel a shift, a minor crack in their armor as she spoke. Imagine a monthly event, perhaps a local artisan night where artists and creators come together to showcase their work, while the diner offers exclusive, themed menus, celebrating local ingredients. A flicker of interest sparked in the attorney's eyes. She pressed on, gathering momentum. This isn't merely about generating revenue, it's about cultivating community, creating a space where connections flourish. As she let the idea roll around her mind, she visualized the evenings filled with laughter, music, and an eclectic assembly of patrons, neighbors, artists, families all sharing the same space, breathing life into memories just as they had done before. Additionally, Jessica continued, her confidence blooming like a spring flower, we can partner with schools for educational programs centered around food sustainability. Let students come in, learn the ropes of diner operations, and understand the significance of local sourcing. They'll be the future patrons, champions of our legacy. She watched as the developer nodded slowly, processing each word. This iteration of growth was no longer about mindless profit, it was about purpose. The diner could be a beacon of hope where past and present converged, a place that highlighted its role within the community rather than merely existing as a line item on a balance sheet. Yet, beneath the growing exhilaration lurked shadows of fear. What if they found the ideas lacking? What if this moment of vulnerability exposed the sharp edges of her inexperience in business rather than highlighting her passion? The insecurity nipped at her resolve, a bite she hadn't anticipated. Each initiative, she proposed, her voice gaining strength, could be tracked, measured, even. We can analyze how these events drive up foot traffic, increase customer loyalty, all the metrics you're so keen on. She wanted to reclaim control, to steer the conversation rather than defer to their expectations. Deep within, she felt the emergence of strategies that could bring her concept to life. Despite the fear niggling at her confidence, Jessica's vision crystallized into clarity. She was no longer merely presenting, but commanding the room with a sense of ownership that felt foreign yet exhilarating. It was an awakening, a sonic boom of self-realization echoing through her subconscious. The attorney glanced at the developer, their silent exchange revealing further contemplation. Jessica seized this uncertainty, the pivoting moment to strike. Summoning every ounce of courage, she posed, "Can you see this diner not just as a business but as a community hub, a transformative force? A prototype that other establishments could aspire to?" The moment hung thick in the air, filled with unspoken words and shifting allegiances. She had ignited something, fanning the flames of potential conviction. But doubt still danced at the edges of the conversation. What if this spark failed to ignite a fire? Just as she braced for another response, the developer's phone rang, shattering the tension with its invasive tone. She watched him hesitate, torn between duty and engagement. The instant reminded her of her own struggles between responsibilities as a single mother and her aspirations for the diner, her dual roles constantly at odds in her life. "Excuse me," he muttered, disengaging from the conversation as he picked up the call. In that brief moment, a surge of determination rushed through Jessica. She would not let this opportunity slip through her fingers. As she contemplated her next steps, she realized she was not only advocating for her diner, a small piece of her heart, but championing her narrative in a landscape filled with uncertainty. What lay ahead in the absence of clarity? Would her conviction hold firm against the tide of corporate pragmatism, or would it crumble under pressure? The stakes had just surged higher, and Jessica felt the undeniable truth: the fight for her diner was a fight for herself. As she waited for the developer's return to an unfinished conversation, she sensed that the real battle was about to begin. Would she allow herself to be seen, truly seen, within this new role? Jessica's heart thundered as she stood in the dim light of the diner, a soft murmur of excitement in her throat. The meeting with the developer left her feeling empowered yet exposed, riding the crest of a wave she had never anticipated. She had transformed from a defeated single mother into a vibrant advocate for her community, fiercely determined to protect the heart of Maplewood. After several days of strategic planning and community engagement, momentum had shifted. She gathered testimonials from regular patrons and organized data reflecting the diner's impact, employing every tactic she could muster. Each new voice bolstered her own, creating a chorus that echoed across the diner and on social media. What started as a battle for the diner morphed into a campaign for their collective identity, fueled by stories of resilience, laughter, and connection. The day of the final meeting with the council approached. Nerves danced within her as she donned her carefully chosen professional attire, a vibrant sweater offering a touch of warmth amidst the chill of uncertainty. She felt grounded in a newfound identity, one that melded her roles as a mother, community member, and advocate. There was no turning back now. The stakes lay heavier than ever. Arriving at the council's chambers, she braced herself for the confrontation she had long prepared for. Friends and supporters trickled in, each face reflecting their journey intertwined with hers. They cheered her on, infusing Jessica with tangible strength. The room buzzed, filled with the electric energy of potential change. As the meeting commenced, members of the council droned on, presenting their views from a detached financial perspective, reminiscent of her earlier encounters. But Jessica was no longer a mere observer in someone else's story. When her name was called, she walked forward with purpose, her heart steadying as she became the embodiment of everything she had fought for. "Thank you for this opportunity," she began, her voice resonating through the chamber. "Today, we're not just discussing a plan, we're reaffirming the fabric of our community." The weight of her words drew a collective breath from the room. Finally, the narrative of personal stories steadied their focus away from cold numbers. She shared poignant testimonials, weaving together the memories of laughter, friendship, and even loss that surrounded the diner. Each anecdote built upon the last, illuminating its significance as a cultural cornerstone. As we face changes, we shouldn't only think about what can be gained financially but what will be lost if we choose to erase something basic yet profound about who we are. Jessica felt the council members leaning in. She had pierced through their shields. Their rigid postures softened as she painted the diner as a lifeline rather than a liability, embodying the sweat and tears of the town's rich history. But then came the developer's rebuttal, attempting to brush off her heartfelt pleas. "Nostalgia is lovely, but we need more than stories, we need a plan with numbers behind it." At that moment, Jessica understood it was time to initiate her counterattack, to elevate her stance from emotional to strategic. I understand that numbers matter, she acknowledged, but they are merely the framework of a story. I invite you to look beyond spreadsheets and to visualize the thriving community that emerges from nurturing sacred spaces. Turning to her supporters, she encouraged their voices to echo in the chamber, encouraging others to share first-hand experiences in defense of their diner. The resonance of multiple voices speaking in unity kindled a warmth in her chest. It was no longer just Jessica's crusade, the community's heartbeat pulsed in tandem with hers, a momentum audibly building. As the final voices resonated through the room, Jessica took a deep breath and prepared her closing argument. This diner holds value beyond financial accounts. It symbolizes our shared humanity, warmth, and joy. Let us collaborate to ensure it thrives, not by sweeping away what matters, but by fostering a future rooted in community, she urged, her voice steady despite the rapid-fire echoes of anxiety flaring in her heart. With a strategic proposal that included community engagement events, arts partnerships, and educational programs she had meticulously refined, her vision encapsulated both emotional and financial benefits. After deliberation, the council members conferred, whispers flickering through the crowd. The tension was palpable. Finally, the council chair cleared his throat, looking out at the gathered attendees. While we acknowledge the need for economic growth within the confines of Maplewood, it is clear that this diner holds irreplaceable value for its community. We propose to reconsider our stance on redevelopment and work collaboratively with Jessica and the residents to enrich our town with more than just numbers. Relief cascaded over Jessica like a flood. Joy erupted in the chamber as her supporters erupted in applause. She had conquered her fears and the doubts that had haunted her for far too long. Later that day, standing outside amidst an effusive crowd, Jessica recognized the immense transformation she had undergone. She had ventured from a tangled existence into a profound sense of purpose, confirming her worthiness through advocacy. With the diner now secured and hope rejuvenated, her transformation became evident. Jessica felt wholly competent, no longer the overwhelmed mother juggling responsibilities and insecurities, but a powerhouse of influence for her community. There stood the woman who confronted her challenges, turning them into stepping stones toward empowerment and resilience, a role model for her children witnessing her breakthrough. Determined to build upon her newfound confidence, she could now connect productive ambition with nurturing advocacy, demonstrating that standing for what you believe in and for those you love makes all the difference. Now, to preserve this moment and the lessons learned, she reminded herself, I will not only fight for others but inspire them to find their inner strength. Today marked not just a victory for a diner, but a reawakening of her own identity, setting the stage for further transformation. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, she understood that this was only the beginning of many stories yet to unfold. Don't wait even one more second to share this narrative of transformation. Become part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Show your support by leaving a like now. It truly makes a difference in reaching more hearts. I want to hear your reactions and theories about the ending. Comment below. And if you know someone who needs inspiration like this, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends. You need to support personal overcoming stories that can change lives.